it play and call it work.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com with another terrain showcase video, this one from PrintableScenery.com. And we'll talk about why it is so interesting in a moment. I'm going to show you some of it first. This is actually, we went to Adepticon, and Matt from Printable Scenery really liked me because I have the same name as him, but really it's more I just came to his table, saw all this terrain and said, I want it. And he said, well, I don't want to bring it back to me to New Zealand, so would you like to take it home? And I said, yes. And so he sent it home with me. And that's awesome, and I'm super excited, especially because we're going to be getting even more from him. But here is what's really cool about this. Like, these buildings look cool. These are fantasy buildings, and this is called the Lost Tribe, and I'm going to go into more detail of what they are in just a moment. So this is really good for orcs or for some sort of barbaric warband. And we got this big wall kit that we still have to paint up. And they just had a Kickstarter for all of this stuff and more, which we're going to be getting. And they raised $200,000 for it. It was incredibly successful for a good reason. What they actually provide you is not the terrain, but the 3D file to print it yourself. And like other companies, a lot of their terrain comes apart like this into different pieces, which is really good for role players. You could even use it in your fantasy games as well, but I find I don't use it that much in battle reports to have them come apart, but some people really like that option. But the fact that they sell you the 3D files means if you buy a 3D printer, which you can get pretty cheap now, I've seen ones as low as $500 or $600 US, and that is cheap considering that you can then print your own terrain forever with their 3D files that you buy for not very expensive amounts of money. And the actual cost of the material to print a building like this, I'm not going to get the amounts correct to the dollar, but we're talking about a few bucks to print each piece, a few dollars. And like I was at Adepticon and the guy had printed an entire table of dungeon tiles for $60 of materials. It's ridiculous how cheap you can do it yourself. It does take a bit of technical expertise to figure out the 3D printer, but it's not overly complicated, but it is more complicated than just buying like a regular printer and installing it. So the fact that you can buy the 3D files cheap from his site, and if you obviously participate in the Kickstarter, then you could have got it in the Kickstarter too, means that you can instantly start printing it from home, no shipping costs, and really, really inexpensive. Just the startup cost of getting the printer is the most expensive part. But let's say that you don't have a 3D printer. You don't want a 3D printer, or you can't afford a 3D printer. There's actually companies that have received a license to print this terrain for you instead. And all of that information is on their website. So when you go to a piece of terrain, there's an option to get it printed, and they'll tell you basically in your country where there is a licensed company that is allowed to print these for you. So they don't come pre-painted, you still have to paint them yourself, but they are fantastically detailed. And even if you buy the $600 printer or $500 printer, you will get this level of detail. Those printers are capable of pulling this off. So it's a really exciting era for terrain companies and for consumers. The fact that you can now do this kind of thing. The only thing you have to pay for is your time, because it does take a while for the 3D printer to print them off. But we got this set over here, which is the Lost Tribe set. And I'm going to be using it in Age of Sigmar a lot for this. It looks really good for the Savage Orcs. I could also see it working for a lot of the Khorne stuff as well, just because, you know, skulls for days, which is Khorne's favorite decoration. Heck, you could probably somehow take this and make the actual throne that Khorne sits on. This all comes apart, by the way, into little pieces. Because if you're looking at this and thinking, oh, my 3D printer could not print that, you're right, it couldn't. But it comes apart into pieces, and each individual piece is really not hard for even a small 3D printer to pull off. All of these are designed with that in mind, so these bigger pieces as well all come apart into smaller pieces, both for the cool, I can keep them apart so I can do role-playing stuff on it, but also just because it makes sense to keep it in smaller pieces for printing. So this is unpainted right now, unfortunately, because they had just got it at Adepticon, but you can see there's a whole rampart of very, very sharp, pointy walls, and I'm not kidding, they actually are very sharp. You could scratch yourself on those if you're not careful. We've got this beautiful lighthouse over here, which is one of the new things that came in the Kickstarter. There's a lot more that the Kickstarter unlocked, too, by getting to $200,000. They unlocked a whole lot of different files and a lot of different designs that they're going to be making, and so those will be coming out shortly. Go to PrintableScenery.com to get all the details of everything they have, and to see even better pictures of their terrain. So you can just see the level of detail that's able to pull off with a 3D printer. I don't think 3D printing, I did an interview with Matt, and I agree with him when he says I don't think 3D printing is going to take over the terrain and model industry, just because there are certain limitations with it right now. But it is definitely going to help to supplement it a whole lot. And if you can figure out how to use a 3D printer, the whole world opens up to you, because there are sites out there that let you get models and terrain for that. So that'd probably be like the biggest thing that would stop somebody from buying a 3D printing file, is that it could be a little complicated, but it is worth the effort to be able to print off your own stuff. So thank you so much, Matt, for this gorgeous terrain. We look forward to other stuff that you will be sending us for our Age of Sigmar battle reports and other fantasy battle reports as well. It looks fantastic. I'm excited to use it. Go check them out. Link below, printablescenery.com. Happy wargaming.